Alright, cha. Right, we've got some very big news here because P. Riddy has just done an interview with BBC Sport Lancashire, and I did listen to a majority of it, however I did not take any notes. So that's why I'm going to say a massive shout out and thank you now in advance to P&E Pure on Twitter for actually documenting all of this. And by I mean documenting it, I mean the important parts, not word for word of course. But we're just going to dive straight into it because I think there's some interesting stuff here that got said, and I do think there is some discussion to be had. So, Peter Ridsdale, BBC Lancashire interviewer thread. Ridsdale described the home form as unacceptable and the away form exceptional. He added that if our home form had been any sort of good, we'd have been in the playoffs, and he's right. He described the season as not disastrous and says he's listening to the fans' complaints, which is a good thing, of course. People will still argue against it and say, you know, read him and weep. Ridsdale don't care about us, Ridsdale's a problem, blah blah blah. But if he's listening at the end of the day, we'll hopefully see some changes being reflected through that. But we'll see. He also added, we're up against financial fair play for this season and it will drop off next season, which is fine. During COVID, the owners invested a huge amount to keep the club alive and running, which is believable because throughout COVID, obviously, we had less revenue coming in through, you know, like sales of A, B and C because supporters could not come to the ground. We couldn't really do anything with the ground either. Everything was behind closed doors for a long time, so it's understandable the owners would have to put in a bit more money to keep us going during COVID. That just makes sense. He added that he didn't hand out medals with pleasure at the final and did it because of his responsibility. For every Luton player he handed a medal to, he wanted it to be a Preston player. And I also remember him saying that he is aware that he has been ridiculed about doing this on social media, and even he thinks he understands why he's being, you know, shot for it, because at the end of the day he's handing out medals to a team that realistically shouldn't be where they are. It's a fairy tale story for Luton, and if you were to compare us and Luton based on money alone, we should be ahead of Luton. So of course that's why people were upset about what were going on at the FA Cup final and blah blah blah, but it is what it is at the end of the day. But like I said, it's his responsibility. He complained about the Premier League getting richer and richer compared to the EFL. Preston got 8 million from media rights while Leicester got 102. Wow. He complained about the amount of teams with parachute payments, with the amount increasing every year, and this is a valid thing to be, you know, concerned about and complaining about, simply because it's literally just, it's not fair. You'll have teams such as ourselves or other teams lower down below us that won't be getting any form of extra payments and finances, whereas you've got your Burnleys, your Norwich, your Watford, your Leicester, your Leeds, your Southampton, all these other teams coming down from the Prem that are going to be getting bags and bags of cash after they've come down, and, you know, from other sorts of income streams. So it is essentially very unfair. But at the same time, it's about what you do with said money. Look at Norwich and Watford. You know, they were finishing roughly where we were, so you can't always complain. It's what you do with the money, such as what Burnley did. He admitted that Preston need to work smarter in the transfer market, which, again, him admitting that we need to work smarter isn't exactly saying anything. It's his job to make us work smarter, if you know what I'm saying. It's his responsibility to handle these sort of things. So that's something that maybe it's a goal for himself to set, but I don't know. 2 contracts are resolved, 2 have signed. One of those includes Brady. Another has agreed personal terms and added complications PR hasn't seen before, which is a norma. The other we're still talking with and haven't heard much from. As of his knowledge, the player hasn't signed for anyone else. If you want my opinion on this, of course, the 2 contracts that are resolved, one's Brady. The one that hasn't, well, is Brady and Woodburn, sorry, which is those 2. Another has agreed personal terms and added complications, a norma. The other one we're talking to, oh no, sorry, including Woodburn. The second one can either be Cunningham or it can be Johnson. And if you want my personal opinion, I think it's Cunningham. Simply because Cunningham has already gone out on record to say that he can't wait to get back in next season. Obviously, his season was brought to an early close based on his injury, and that was a shame. But he's already said he wants to get back and firing next season for us. Whereas Johnson's been completely radio silent, but he's always radio silent, so I'll take it with a pinch of salt, of course. But I still think it's Cunningham. And Johnson, we are still trying to get a contract nailed for, but he isn't going anywhere else at the moment, so it's not exactly positive, but it's not exactly negative. We've made 2 bids for a player, and both have been turned back, but we can afford his wages. And that's an interesting one for me and a few other people, because we're actually putting in bids for players that aren't free. So this is a player we are paying money for a change, because a majority of players we've signed for the last 2 years have been free. So that's an interesting one. And the last player we paid money for was Freddie Woodman, as far as I'm aware, and Freddie Woodman was the dog's bollocks. PR talks about representatives at United and City about the younger players they have. Of course, we all know that Man United hosts Alvaro and Man City hosts Delap. Would I like to see Delap return? Absolutely not. Would I like to see Alvaro return? Absolutely. So there's two halves to that, but obviously Man United have loads, I mean a plethora of great young players. I know Garnacho at one point was considered one of those players, but he's now a first team player, so that's irrelevant. Not entirely sure what Alanga's doing these days, but it might be past the young stage. But in terms of their youth teams, there's plenty to pick out of. We've already met with Everton twice. Once during the season, once this season finished, about Tom Cannon. Okay, so one during the season and one after the season finished. We're looking at other players. In an ideal world, Everton would like to loan him out instead of selling, which is a bit of a bombshell, really. Well, not a bombshell, but it's a bit of a shot, because we inquired about, according to rumours, we inquired about a permanent for Cannon, which would have been brilliant, but I can see why they'd rather loan him out. You know, he's still young, he's got his future ahead of him, and they desperately need a striker. So unless they don't bring a striker in, I can see him staying, but if they bring a striker in, it wouldn't surprise me if they loan him out again. And we're also looking at other players. If that's within Everton, that's pretty cool. Peter spoke to Man United about Alvaro on Saturday. He added, never say never. So in other words, it's not a yes at the minute, and negotiations are still ongoing, essentially. We spent all the money from the Tottenham Hotspur FA Cup tie on top of the budgeted amount on bringing in January transfers. So in other words, the money we got from the Cup, as well as, you know, what we was given to spend in January, was spent on the 3 players we signed in January, which was Cannon, Delap and Onoma. 2 of 3 were successful, in my opinion. The reason we turned down the Reece bid was due to how it would have been paid. The bid was attractive, but we wouldn't have had enough money up front to find a replacement, and I think this is a great bit of I'm going to like that. This is a great bit of business, because if it's a very attractive bid for a player that you know can bring in the money, you're going to want to just accept it and say give me the cash, but because we weren't being paid up front for it to get someone in for Emil, that's why we didn't send him off. So in other words, that's probably why Emil at the time was shaky, because he was aware there was a bid for him. The rumour went around saying that Emil's not playing his best football, he's probably scared he's going to get sold, and it's weighing on his mind, and that is probably true, because it was rather attractive. So in other words, they was considering selling Emil Reece, but of course that didn't end up happening. The rumour suggested it was going to Middlesbrough for 10 million apparently, which is a very attractive bid. But like we say, if they didn't pay us up front, or a lot of it up front, then we can't find a replacement, and we would have been a lot worse off. P. Riddy sees the bid as a statement of intent to show our ambition to compete at the top half. Whether or not he means the bids to get other players back, or the bid regarding Reece, I think it's the other ones, the other players. It's fair enough, that's fine, you can say that, but you have to be doing it consistently. We've had around 1 person per month wanting to buy Preston North End, according to P. Riddy. We've shown them around and never heard from them again. Doesn't surprise me, to be honest with you. But at the same time, at least there are people looking at the club, because people are always saying, you know, people are always wanting on Twitter to, they're all saying, you know, sell the club, sell the club. You can't just be quick to sell. You have to sell to the right buyer, and the buyer wants to buy us. Nobody wants to buy us. It's as simple as that. Well, at the moment, anyway. Part 1 of the interview, that was that. So part 2, Ryan Lowe was at a football club today talking to their loans manager. No idea what football club it is, but it's one of them, and it's definitely not Everton or United. And if it is, then that's fine, but I don't think it will be, because otherwise it might have been stated. Peter says he's seen progression since appointing Ryan Lowe, especially considering having 8 first-team players out. That's regarding where we finished in the table. I know it's 12th, but when you look at the points-wise, it was only 6 points from the playoffs. So yeah, I think P. Riddy's got a point. I do think that was a fine enough sentence. All PR wants is a squad where everyone wants our players. We have no bids to date for Woodman, which shuts down the Rangers link. PR has spoken to Ben Whiteman at length and is hopeful for him for a new contract. Whiteman has given no indications of wanting to leave, which again, it just backs up a negative. It's a positive backing up a negative to break even for something neutral. The deals offered to Pearson and Davies would have made them the highest paid at the football club, so even ahead of Alan Brown and Daniel Johnson. We are still currently receiving money from Liverpool and Bournemouth due to them achieving certain things, which is good. We haven't had another bid for a player since Reece's was turned down. We have something that is likely to happen in the first week of the season, and have said we would want to be away on the first game of the season. This is also due to possibly being drawn midweek in the Cup. So I'm going to read that again. We have something that is likely to happen in the first week of the season. I'm not entirely sure what that is, whether it's a player or not, I have no idea, or a special event. and have said we would want to be away on the first game of the season. So similar to the season just gone, we had an away day at Wigan, which was a disaster. It's not disastrous, but it was a boring one. But yeah, all the away days this year are very far away, so I don't know exactly how that's going to go down. The Liverpool game will make Preston a significant profit, and is confused about people complaining about trying to maximise the income. And this was something I was going to mention at one point, but decided to leave it. But yeah, in other words, just to bring some clarity, Liverpool want to use Deepdale for a football match, to use Deepdale as a home venue for Liverpool to play another team. And that's because Anfield's currently going under some work, and this would be played 2 days after the season begins, sometime early August. I have not a problem with this. Fair enough. I think the main argument is it's going to bring out all the Liverpool supporters that live in Preston, which is like probably fucking 50% of the city at this point. But at the same time, it's not a bad thing because, like you say, it will bring in the money. And if it brings in money, then why are we complaining? You know what I'm saying? End of the day, you can't complain about having no money, but then complain about ways to make money. Riddy is delighted to be asked about the Liverpool friendly and has a number of relationships with many clubs in the northwest, which is a good thing. Ridsdale says that he thinks there's a certain opportunity for people to use the ground at Deepdale, which of course has been shown literally just this weekend gone with the tattoo convention they had at Deepdale Stadium. If someone wants to rent Deepdale Stadium, then do it. You know, why would we say no? As long as they're not going to destroy the place and they're going to look after it, we're going to get money. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing. We are back for pre-season training on the 26th of June, which is the same day the kit drops. He wants people to come train with Preston if he thinks they stand a chance. Interesting, he wants people to come train with Preston if he thinks they stand a chance. I'm not entirely sure what that means, whether or not that's I think he means other players from other teams as like a trial run maybe. I don't think he means an open training day, come train with the players, that'd be ridiculous. Ridsdale feels as if he's done a good job in the 12 years that he's been here. That's going to get a lot of fans talking, to say the least, because he's not exactly a popular figure, and he admits that himself. He knows he's not popular, but at the end of the day, he's just trying to do his job. And as you can see here, literally the first comment on the thread, if he is leaving the club, then I'd read it. Other than that, I'm not interested in a single word he says. People like this are that are blind ignorant to what's actually going on in the world of football and what's going on with the football club. You wonder why there's always so much confusion and complaints and all this other like stupid shit being thrown around on the internet, because there's ignorant people such as this commenter that only want Ridsdale out. They don't want, and I mean, fair enough. I'm not entirely for Ridsdale. I do think he does a lot of things wrong, and he has especially done a lot wrong over the last 3 years compared to what we used to do in terms of, like, you know, selling players for profit, such as Callum Robinson and all those other kind of players. But when you're not going to want to hear him out on other things he has to say regarding why we're doing X, Y, and Z, and why we can't do A, B, and C, and all these other things, you know, what can do good for us, what won't do good for us, then, you know, you just, it's not good. You need to hear him out, because at the end of the day, he's the chairman of the club, and we can't change that. If the only people that can change his role are the Hemmings family, and I don't think they're going to be doing that anytime soon, so it is what it is. But yeah, thanks a ton for listening in. I just wanted to go over this because I do feel it's a very important interview, and it raises a lot of good and valid points, and it can maybe provide some insight into how next season's going to look. So from what I took from this is we are bidding for players, we are actively looking for players at the moment, and we're trying to get back our top 2 performers from last season's loans, as well as trying to get the contracts over the line. We want to get players in by the 26th of June, and if not a bit after that, but we're definitely going to want some players in and around that time. And yeah, that's what I'm gathering. Ridsdale's looking to generate money this season, as well as spending the money wisely. So yeah, excited to see where things go from here, and I'm also interested to see what the majority response will be. I'm guessing it's going to be similar to what that person said, but yeah, it is what it is. But like I said, thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care and goodbye.